This is Needy and Normal. I'm your host, Ashley Levering, mom, wife, and life coach. After years of experience and learning from my own life, one thing is clear. Meeting your needs is essential for living a better life. No, you're not needy. Having needs is normal, and your needs matter. Hello, welcome back. Needy and Normal is going to feel a little different today because I'm doing something a little different today. The Reyes Reflection is a fantastic podcast that I got to be a part of not too long ago. Nathanael Reyes, excellent podcast, very entertaining. He interviews really amazing people, including myself. So we thought it would be really fun for me to basically take over the Reyes Reflection because he's a fascinating person, Nathanael, and I wanted to interview him. And we thought, how fun would it be if we both did an episode? And I'm very excited to share it with you and let you hear his story and the mindset of this guy. I mean, you guys, this is powerful stuff, very real. And, you know, enjoy. Well, I'm going to intro you. I'm taking over the Reyes Reflection for a minute with permission. I like hands up.
With consent.
With consent. I love it. If you saw our episode or listened to our episode before, then, you know, hopefully I'm not too new to your audience, but I want to do a flip the script and bring to life some of these stories that Nathanael Party Animal keeps from us, from you, I should say. So I'm going to intro you, even though we already know who the guest is.
Yes.
Spoiler alert, it's you on your own show. All right, let's do it. All right. I added a little color to this. I hope you don't mind. He is a podcaster, a personal trainer, an educator, a kind soul who deeply cares, self-motivated with high energy that is absolutely contagious. He's shy of the spotlight because he'd prefer to put it on you unless he's performing as an actor. We're going to get into this. I give you the party animal, Nathanael Reyes.
I am taking a vow for that. That is a good one. I like it. I like the little color that you added on there. Speaking of which, I'm wearing my favorite color right now.
Ah, well, there we go. Now we know one more fact, that he likes pink, everybody.
I'll tell you why.
Oh, tell us why.
My favorite color is pink because I like how tan my skin looks when I wear it.
Oh, all right. I wore the wrong color for my white self. I'm wearing white on white. I don't know what I was thinking.
You were thinking that this was going to be a really translucent episode, and so you had to go ahead and go with the theme.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, you see what I did.
Although, so your audience will get to see this, you know, in little snippets or in full, but my audience is still very much on the audio. If you want to see what's happening, you might have to go on our socials to see what this looks like, see the pink and the white.
Yes. Yeah. This is a visual audience cue only. You audio listeners, sorry, but you suck. No, I'm kidding.
Use your imagination.
That's right.
I love it. All right. So I should have asked you. We're gonna take down the curtain for a second. I should have asked you if there's anything off the table, but that is not my style. I'm gonna just dive, and if you want to go there with me, go. If you don't, I'm gonna call you out. No. Yes.
If I don't answer, you know it's really juicy. Then okay.
Then I'm gonna poke more. So here's my miniature intro. If you don't know who I am yet, I'm Ashley Levering. I own a life coaching business. So I am, by profession, an investigator. So it's easy for me to put on that journalist style kind of hat and dig. And that's honestly how I help my clients, is to learn as much as I can about them. So we're going to learn things about our friend here, Mr. Nate. What do you want? I mean, what does your audience know you as? As Nathanael, as Nate?
So it's so funny because my whole life I've always gone by Nathanael because I've always just been that type of person that that's my name. My name is Nathanael. It's not Nate. Nate is a completely separate name. But the reason why I started going by Nate, here's a story for you. I'll right off the rip, I'll tell you a story.
Yes.
So I went to go order food like many people do, and I placed my order over the phone. This was back before DoorDash and Uber Eats was a thing, and you had to actually call the restaurant. I know that's a frightening thought to a lot of people that you actually have to talk to somebody, but I called them, and so I said my order. I forget what it was, whatever. I go to pick it up. As I went to go pick it up, I said, hey, I'm here to pick up for Nathaniel. And they go, who? And I said, Nathaniel. And so they start looking for like 30, 40 minutes. And so finally, like I said, can I just say what I ordered and you can go look for that? And they said, sure. So I said, I think it was like a cheese pizza or something stupid like that. It was something like that should have been done in 10 minutes. And all of a sudden they were like, oh, we had one for Daniel, not Nathaniel. So because of that, I started to go ahead and just say Nate online orders or whenever I went to talk to someone on the phone. And then it just kind of grew into this massive thing where now I've told people they can call me Nate. I have friends who would hate that I do that because they asked if they can call me Nate in high school, and I said no. And I also have one friend in particular who hates that I even allow anybody to call me that. But you can call me Nate, Nathaniel, ponytail guy, croc guy, whatever. Pink guy, I don't care. I'm pretty easygoing, but, Nathaniel is my government name, but I do go by Nate.
My government name. I love it.
Yes.
You have some aliases, too.
I do, some fake socials,
Oh, my
you
God.
got to do what you got to do, right?
You know what, though? Speaking of other names, can you tell us the story of Party Animal? Where does that come from?
Yeah, so that's funny. So some background story to that is I don't drink. I don't drink at all. It's not my thing. I've tried it, never liked it. Don't judge anybody who does, but it's just not for me. I don't like the taste of it. I don't like anything. You can come at me with any concoction of a beverage, and I'm telling you right now, I'm not going to like it. I do not know why. Trulies, whatever, even if I've had people say, oh, but this doesn't have that much. Don't like it. Never did. But I would drink it just because it was like a social thing with friends, and at weddings or big gatherings, I like to just have fun. I like to get everyone on the dance floor. I like to go ahead and do that. I'm telling you right now, if you invite me to your wedding, I will be the first one on the dance floor. I will not be one of those people that wait until awkwardly everybody joins. I will be there by myself, whether you're with me or not. And so why Party Animal came out to be is because, again, as I mentioned, I do not drink. So a lot of times when I go to weddings, I act like a fucking nut. And a lot of people will look and be like, dude, how many has this guy fucking had? And my friends will be like, no, my friends and family will be like, he's sober. This is all him. I've gotten DJs out on dance floors. So Party Animal is because, like, if you want a party and you want an animal, you got it. And I can do it. So I can do it sober, which I think is a better gift. Like, again, there's been many, many moments where people have gone up to loved ones and said, is he going to be okay? And they're like, I'm telling you right now, he is completely sober. Wow. And it is unfathomable that I am sober. But I am. I do not drink.
So you're the life of the party no matter what. That's just who you are.
Oh, absolutely. You got to be. I think life is too short for it to not be a party. I think, there's ebbs and flows. Things go on. And there's always things that we could be a little bit more discouraged about or wish a little bit better. But I've always tried to find the good in situations, and so I think that plays into the nature of Party Animal because I think there's a lot of times when we can focus on the negative. I think you and I have talked about this. Focusing on negative is easy, right? It's easy to look at negative things. But for me, I've always liked to see the light in things. I've always been like, well, there's no light without dark, and I don't like to focus on the negatives, and I'm not saying they're not pertinent and they're not helpful, right? You need two sides of the coin to make the coin actually have some value. It's just something for me that being the party animal, being the life of the party, having fun, doesn't matter the circumstances. I could have $5 in my pocket. I could have $5,000 in my pocket. I'm going to have a good time. And so that's just always been the type of person who I am. Just for some context, Ashley's the only one that can invoke me to share these stories. So I grew up very poor, and we grew up with not a lot of resources in terms of food, money, etc. So because of that, lights would get turned off on us. And it got to a point where I was like, let's just have fun in the dark. And so I don't know if people remember this game, but there's a game called, or a TV show, it's called Silent Library, where these people do a bunch of stupid, ridiculous tasks, but you can't laugh. And it would be like slap each other with whipped cream, but you're trying your best not to laugh. While we were in those dark moments, literally and figuratively, as a child, I would just try to make fun out of it. It would not be something that I would be so discouraged by. And no shade against people that do get discouraged by that, but for me it was like, let's just have fun. Let's make memories out of this. Let's laugh. And I pride myself on the fact that a lot of times when things could go south, my friends and loved ones are like, you know what? You were the one that kind of elevated and brought us into a much more pleasant scenario than what it could have been. And I do that now. I mean, I'll always be the type that's like, yeah, but it could be this, I've always been the type of a glass half full kind of guy. And I try to replicate that in life. So I like life is my party. And therefore, I like to always have fun.
Life is my party. I just thought of 2 t-shirts. Life is my party. And before that, I was thinking I can do it sober.
Yes, so, I could do it sober. I could do it sober.
I mean, talk about an attitude, the ability from a young age to take a really potentially scary, negative situation and see light in it. Yeah. That's, I don't know if that's a skill you can acquire over time, perhaps, or if you're just born with it. And from the sounds of it, this is something you were made with.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of both, because I will say this. I mean, I'm human, and despite the fact that I may look like Superman, I'm not. No, I'm kidding. But no, there were moments where, I definitely could feel the hardships. A lot of it was embarrassing stuff. Like, I'll share another story. My family couldn't afford my senior photos. Okay. And so, you know how when you do a photo from like a professional photographer, a lot of times they have this watermark on the background that says it's theirs before you purchase it. So that way the watermark isn't there. So they showed the display of my senior photo and the watermark was clear. And my mom still wanted me to be in the yearbook, my senior yearbook in high school. So she took a screenshot of that, cropped it, and you could clearly see the watermark. So my high school senior photo in my yearbook is one with a watermark, and it's a little fucking JPEG on the corner there. So, I mean, I think there's moments where, it's obviously noticeable, right? Like, that is clearly one that it's like everybody in the fucking yearbook has a clear, yearbook picture, but here I am with a fucking JPEG and a watermark. Yeah. And I could have easily taken that moment and been like, woe is me. And I think I did a little bit, but I think there was always this dichotomy within me in which that positive side always overtook that negative side, because instead I took it as, I'm fucking special. Why not me type of deal. And while we were graduating, I was the only student in which the announcer messed up the name. The only student. Every other person got it perfectly correct. Even names that were fucking crazier and longer than mine. Nathanael Reyes, I know it sounds like it's hard, but I don't think it's that hard. But she messed up. As I walked across the stage, took my diploma and kept going. I remember looking at my mom and dad and saying, hey, of course they messed up my name. I'm that special type of deal. And maybe that's, borderline narcissistic in a way to kind of help you get over what could be a potentially embarrassing moment. But I definitely did try to flip the script so that way it wasn't this embarrassing moment, which it could have been.
Yeah, well, you owned it. It's interesting because whenever I will coach people about like things that they could potentially feel shame about, and every time they learn how to own it and laugh at it most of the time, it's just like so much easier. So you use that tool before you probably even realized that was a thing. You're just like, it is what it is. Look at me, and found 100%. your silver lining.
Yeah, 100%. I think, as I referenced earlier, it's so easy to get caught up in negativity and woe is me. It's harder to overcome overcome that hill. And I'm sure you've talked to many of your clients who you try to help get up that hill. But once you overcome it, it really is invigorating. It's freeing. It's like, wow, I don't need to stress out about stupid bullshit. I can laugh at myself. It's not that big of a deal. I texted you earlier telling you that I got rejected because my nose was so big in middle school. I laugh at that. It's not, did I laugh at it then? No, I think I shed a tear. You know what I mean? But I'll laugh at it now. Who cares? I got a big nose. I got a big schnauzer. Who cares? It is what it is. I mean, but, it's so easy to get caught up in what could be changed. Instead, own what you can't in a way. Own that. Like, own that fucking shit. I couldn't make that woman correct my name again. So own the fucking shit that she made the mistake. You know what I mean?
Thanks for the attention.
Yeah, exactly. Own it. So
Yep.
to bring it back to what we were talking about earlier, I think it is a combination of both. I think I was definitely born with that mentality of I don't really give a fuck what other people have to say. But I do definitely think that there were moments in which it was tested. And so it was almost like, hey, what skills have I acquired to overcome this?
Yeah. Well, and that's life, right? We go through shit. We learn from it. Hopefully, not everybody does. Not everyone is able to. So, and I don't know. I feel like that's the biggest difference. If I'm going to narrow it down to there's two different kinds of people, there's a million different guys. But if there's two different kinds of people, there's the ones that learn and the ones that don't. And
yes.
And if you don't learn and grow and figure out how to be a person, or at least be the person you want to be, then you're just held back. And in those negative moments, you stay there. And you just live in that shit. So, I mean, it's funny because I have these questions for you and you're answering so many of them. One being, when you are facing negative stuff, do you feel it? Do you live through it and then turn it around? Or do you try and like get yourself to Positiveville quick?
Wow, such a good question. That's a phenomenal question. You're amazing. That is I think you've stumped me. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and try to revert back to when I've had negative moments. So my dog passed away about a week ago. We had to put him down. Very, very sad. I would argue that is a very traumatic experience for people.
Yeah.
So obviously I was very heartbroken. I was devastated and I was crushed. But I think for me personally, it becomes a situation of I still have things to do and I have to continue doing them. I think I just don't want to be tied down. I don't want it to be an excuse. I just don't want it to hold me back. I want to be able to overcome it. So I think the biggest thing for me, I'm going to say something that I 100% know may not work for people, but it works for me. I believe everything is my fault, good and bad. And why I say that is because then it takes control away from what could deter me, right? I don't want to sit here and say, oh, man, well, if only this, and this happened, then it would have, gone smoothly. I think when you do that, you open yourself up for one cope of, hey, I failed. And I'd rather it be a situation of, I failed myself as opposed of somebody else failed me. And again, I'm not saying it works for everyone because I know we're gonna pull back the curtain a little bit. We had been talking about doing this for a while, and your audience is gonna hear this as is mine. So I'm trying to be sensitive because I don't want your audience to think that I'm just this crazy nutcase. But no, it works for me. What works for me is taking responsibility of my life in every way, whether it's good, bad, ugly, indifferent. And I do that and it helps me because then again, it doesn't allow somebody else to take the reins. And then now I feel helpless. I want to be able to feel like I have overcome this challenge regardless. Now, I'm not saying I don't have support, right? We are the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with. That's my personal belief as well. I believe who you're around can help elevate you, but can also help diminish you. And I just want to take control of it. When my dog passed away, my family, I will be honest, I said I could have done more. And my family had to sit down and talk with me, and they were like, he was old. There was only so much you can do. And had this weird thing in my head where I'm like, what if I had gotten better food? Then he could have lived longer. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but that's that bartering stage, right?
Yeah.
During
That's grief.
grief.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And I really, really understood that. And so I've always just been the type of person that can elevate myself. And what I mean by that is extrapolate what I'm feeling and look at it from an objective point of view and from another person's point of view. Even when I give people advice, or if I try to give myself advice, the best advice I heard growing up was somebody said, talk to you the way that you would your best friend.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, you would not say to your best friend, you're a piece of shit. Why did you do that? You wouldn't say that. And if you do, you're not being a good friend. Now, I will look at myself in the mirror and say, man, you could have improved this way. You don't need to talk to people that way. That's self-improvement. That's self-reflection. And so, again, I'm very hard on myself, but not in a negative, derogatory way, in a way that's like, I want to increase what I can be and be the best version of myself. So, to answer the initial question of how I am when I'm going through crisis, do I immediately go into Positiveville? I think what I do is I take my emotions with me. I drive to Positiveville. I park the car. I'm there, but I do have the emotions there with me.
Okay.
And now while I'm there, I got to work through it and I got to process it so that way I can reside there. I can't reside there if I'm negative. So I think to answer your question is, yes, I immediately shoot there while I'm still holding it, but then I do things to help keep me there. I go to the gym. I talk to a friend. Honestly, sometimes just being by myself. Sometimes I have to have a solid 10, 15 minutes where I'm like, I don't talk to anyone. I don't look at my phone. I disconnect. There are things that you have to do to help yourself. And I think, again, take that control. And I think that you can go farther with that than, there's really nothing I can do. I don't have any control. Again, works for me, may not work for some.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. And I don't think my audience will think that's crazy because they've heard me say many times that we are responsible for our own reactions and responses, and you control what you can, and what you can't control, you let it go. I'm a huge fan of that concept. In fact, I teach logical response versus emotional reaction. Like, if you're just emotionally reactive to everything that happens, you're not going to get through it. You're not going to get to Positiveville, any faster. But if you are, taking that breath and logically responding to the situation, knowing that there's something you can control, take a beat, then the circumstances can be different. So no, I'm a big fan of that, and clearly that works for you.
I don't really let my emotions dictate what's going on in my life. Now, I'm not saying I don't feel the emotions. That's not what I'm saying. I don't want to conflate. I just don't let it dictate my life, because there's logic and emotion. And why I say that is because, you hear these stories where people will talk about how they're in abusive relationships, right? And then they want to stay. That's an emotional decision, right? And because it's not logical. If it was logical, you'd be like, man, this guy or girl is mentally abusive, physically abusive, whatever the case may be. The emotional decision is, I have to stay because maybe he'll change. Logic is telling you that it hasn't happened. And if it hasn't happened, what makes you think that it's going to happen, right? Like, there's only so many things that a person can do. A leopard can't change their stripes. Now, maybe I'm being hypocritical because I do believe people can grow. I'm not saying they can't, but I'm saying in that particular scenario, are you going to go ahead and allow the emotion dictate you, or are you going to let the logic dictate you? And I credit that to my father, and because my parents are very polar opposites. My mom is a very emotionally charged individual. She will allow emotions to dictate her decisions. Or my dad is a very stoic logic person, and my dad is the type that's like, well, let's take a step back. Let's think about what this is going to be if you take the emotional path. My dad never discouraged me from taking an emotional path. It was just, well, now you got to understand that you're going to go left and right. Whereas logic is pretty black and white. It's pretty clear. Like, Is this person treating me the way that I want to be treated? I'm reverting back to the relationship scenario. Is this person treating me the way that I deserve to be treated? No. Should I go find someone that should treat me the way that I want to be treated? Yes. Okay, then. Again, emotion's going to sit there and say, well, we
But
have kids and maybe he will change. And, hey, for the first 6 months, he was the sweetest guy in the world. So maybe he will. Well, everybody's the sweetest person in the world the first 6 months. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, that's life.
yep.
But I really think that how I live my life is I just don't let emotions dictate my decisions. If I'm upset about something, I process it, but I'm not going to make a decision that's, emotionally charged. I think that can be a little bit more destructive than helpful. And it's not just, interpersonal relationships or whatever. It could be business, right? Like you don't have to like your business partner. You don't, for the people who don't know, Ashley doesn't really like me, and we're doing. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But you understand the point that I'm making, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of times, like you'll hear some of the best business partners are people who didn't really care for each other or were on opposing sides for a while, and then they get together, right? Emotion's gonna sit there and say, "I don't like them. This needs to be a WWF WWE match." Logic is gonna say, "Hey, if they're making money, we're making money, and this is an even exchange. Let's do it."
Yeah.
So I think that's how I live my life. Logical decisions.
Okay. All right. I'm going to challenge you though.
Let's hear it, my friend. I love this is what we're here for.
So logic, if you
Yeah.
are leading by logic and you don't let your emotions quote unquote get in the way,
Yeah.
is that a protection mechanism of sorts?
Oh, you are good at your job. Okay, I love it. This is why we get along, because people said that you challenged me on the first one, and and it's pretty clear that you're really good at your job and you ask great questions. Perhaps it is. Perhaps I want to protect the pain that I could endure during this time. Now, I think pain and suffering is an everyday part of life. But, I'm trying to think of how I use logic over emotion. Again, like I don't want to say I don't have emotions. I just think I do a good job at controlling them because I have things I got to do. If I was sad or upset or happy, I would be doing this podcast with you. It wouldn't matter.
We wouldn't know.
And we wouldn't know. The lights would be on bright, and I would still be doing the exact same way that I am. Because for me, it's like I've got shit I got to do. I have stuff I have to do. I have to work. I have to train. I have to be a good friend. I have shit I got to do. And so perhaps you're right. In some ways, it is a protection and a mechanism because it allows me to control my emotions rather than let somebody else control. So, yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic question. I do think some of that could be true. I would be an amateur if I said that there's probably no truth to that. I would have, as a professional, I'm going to say that you're probably right. There's probably some truth to the fact that I always make logical decisions over emotional is because I want to go ahead and protect myself and make sure I'm in control of the situation as opposed of somebody else. Because as soon as I open up my emotion and my vulnerability, it's like, oh, great. Now they can twist the knife, right? It's kind of like, you're married. It's kind of like when you say a comment and it kind of pisses your significant other off, and then you're like, ooh, now I know it's in this, it's right here. And you don't bring it up maybe for another 2-3 months, but then something happens and then you bring up that comment and they're pissed off again. I don't want somebody to do that to me. So I go ahead and I'm like, nope, even keel. I'm not rattled. Whatever you say, it is what it is type of deal.
Is that where the acting comes in? I mean, I'm really calling you out right now. Because
No.
I get it. You got to do things. You got to stay focused. But
Yeah.
closing off to being vulnerable all the time, well, I mean, what's that do?
That's a great question. It allows me to be competent in everything that I'm doing. It
In
allows
control.
me, correct, right? Like it allows me to still do what I have to do, right? And why I share that is because, there are some individuals that are like, I don't feel good. I don't feel it today. I'm not going to the gym. To me, I'm like, I have to. Doesn't matter if I'm sad. Doesn't matter if I'm happy. Doesn't matter if I'm angry. I have to. And so for me, what it does is it allows me to continue doing what I have to do, regardless. Because emotions are not black and white, it allows for some haywire decisions and some haywire conclusions that maybe you're not prepared for. Whereas for me, because I like to live in the logical realm of black and white, again, logic says I'm upset. I still have things I got to do. I still have to work. I still have to train. I still have to go be around my family and friends. Whereas emotions, you hear situations where people go, yeah, I just wasn't feeling it, so I didn't do anything today. I didn't go talk to my friends. I didn't go to the gym. I didn't go outside. Whereas me, I would argue that doing all those things would actually help your emotions and help you overcome that. So for me, it allows me to continue to be as competent as possible in my day-to-day life.
Okay, that's fair. I will give you credit when you said, I will go to Positiveville and I'll park there and I'll take my emotions with you. So you're not completely ignoring them or pretending like they don't exist. You're just able to stay in control of yourself and stay focused and stay dedicated to the stuff that really matters to you. Because, like you said, it's really easy for emotions to hijack your logic and keep you from doing stuff. So moving forward matters to you. And I don't know, I'm going back to, is that a development of what you've been through, of the things you've experienced and the things you've learned how to overcome and look at and endure and then keep going? So yes, protection and being vulnerable can be kind of scary, but I would say it's a skill, like being able to, yeah, I know my emotions are there, but they're not going to play as big of a role as my logic and being in control of myself. Is that a development of things you've been through?
Yeah, perhaps. I'm an emotional man. I think we're all
Oh,
emotional
he's
people.
emotional now.
But what I'm saying is that I think you have to do a good job at controlling that emotion and not letting it dictate you. Again, I feel emotions. I was discouraged about my dog.
Yeah.
God forbid if something happened to my folks, I would be upset. But I think what happens is that when we are experiencing emotions, it is this gray area. It's this uncharted territory. And so I like to go ahead and just say, all right, I'm experiencing this right now. It's a situation in which I'm hyper emotional. However, in the grand scheme of my life, it's not the deciding factor of my life.
You can zoom out.
I do think you're 100% correct. I grew up in a situation where cockroaches were crawling around us as we slept. I share this to people. I was lucky if I had food in the fridge, and I was lucky if the fridge was even on because maybe the power was off. We didn't have hot water growing up, so I had to boil water. And because if it was too hot, I had to put cold water in it so that way I can use cups to give myself a shower. And I share all that because all that was going on. But I still had sports. I still had to go to school. I still had friends. I still had everything I had to do. So I didn't allow it to dictate my life. Whereas I think a lot of people would allow it to dictate their lives.
Yeah.
And I'm more just here because I want to be a beacon of light to those individuals saying, look, I have gone through some shit. You're the only one that's probably been so honest of being like, hey, you have a story too, Nathanael, and I think we got to go ahead and air it out. And I really want to say that I think if I've gone through what I have gone through, gun violence around me, drugs, knife violence, etc., and I'm still this positive individual, I believe in my heart of hearts that everybody could get there. I do. And so, if anything, I'm trying to be a beacon of success and hope for people who are going through some stuff, are going through some traumatic experiences, and understanding that you can get out of that dark hole. You know, maybe you were born in that dark hole. You know, I would say I was, right? You can't pick your surroundings, but you can go ahead and pick your future. I've said this to my friends, and maybe people disagree with me, and that's completely and utterly fine. I say, you're 18 to you're 30. That's your years to figure your shit out, in my opinion. That's your years to go, my childhood, this, that, and the other thing. No disrespect, but I'm going to be 32. I don't say, yeah, but, you know, back when I was 8 or 9, I didn't have heat and hot water. Like, I don't say that stuff. I just say, it is what it is. I still have stuff I got to do. That was fucking 23 years ago. Like, I got shit I got to do. You know, that's life. And so I think hard times are going to come, so don't make them. I think a bad day will come. There will be, I hate to put this out in the ether, but there will be a day where I get a phone call that something happened to my dad, something happened to my mom, God forbid something happened to my brothers. So I'm not going to let minor inconveniences make me have bad days. So to answer the initial question, perhaps it is some protection in a way. Maybe I do have this mold over my heart to make sure that nobody can chisel away at it, but it does help me go through my day-to-day life. But I'm also a realist and understanding that there is going to be a day where something is going to jab right through, and then that's when I'm going to go ahead and be able to say, all right, something happened to dad, something happened to mom, something happened to my brothers. I got to go ahead and, you know, handle that emotion in Positiveville. Because I do believe that a lot of things are situational too. That's my personal belief as well. I think I can be upset about things that happened to me when I was 8, 9, 10, but that's situational. I'm not in that situation anymore, so I'm not going to be so upset about it. I would say that I was upset when I had my knee surgery a few months ago, but that was situational, right? The sun will rise again. You could go through a month where you have nothing but torrential downpour, but I'm telling you, the sun will rise again. So you will go through hard times. The storm is going to come, but that sun will be there on the other side. It's just whether or not you can weather that storm. And I've always been the type of person that wants to weather any storm. I don't care how big or small it is. I'm confident in myself and my capabilities that I will go through that storm with a smile and be there on the other side and still be partying on the other side.
I love that. That's beautiful. Please, somebody quote that. But seriously, as far as like positive mental outlook, which, you know, is a lot of people's goals in life, is I want to have a positive mental outlook. And there's so many people who get trapped in the victim mentality and the victim mindset and woe is me, and I've been through so much, and they lean on that and lay on it and use it as excuses, and that's not you. And I hear you, you know, like your emotions are there, like you care deeply. I mean, I said that in the beginning, you're a deeply caring soul. That's just who you are. Just because logic leads the way doesn't mean that's not, you know, there's not a bunch of mush inside there. Obviously there is, but I'm not hearing that you've been in a victim mindset ever, or at least for a long time, and putting that out in the world. You know, like, let's talk about this legacy. You're an educator, an influencer. You know, is this the legacy? Is this what we get from the Nathanael Reyes, the don't be a victim?
I've always wanted an exceptional life, and every superhero movie we watch, the superhero is losing 90% of the time. It's not until the final 2 minutes of that movie where the hero is standing there triumphantly, conquering their giant, and they stand there. Life's grim, you know, and if you want to be an exceptional individual, you have to understand that bad things are going to happen. You could be the victim, but you could also be the superhero. If you watch Batman, both of his parents died. You watch Spider-Man, both of his parents died. Bad shit is going to happen. A bad day is going to come. But rather than hold on to every little bad thing and say, now my day is bad, use that as motivation. Again, I 100% believe that. Every superhero movie you watch, they're losing for a majority of the movie. It's not until the very end where they succeed and they accomplish their goal. If my life is a movie, I'm going to go through more bad shit than good shit. I'm going to go through more stresses. you're going to, whether it be bills, whether it be, oh, I just went ahead and I fixed my car, filled my gas, and now the tire popped. You know what I mean? Like something is going to happen. And so I don't want to hold on to being a victim, because I think there's much more on the other side of being the hero to your own story than being the victim to your story. I think when you're the victim of your story, it's upsetting, it's depressing.
Yeah, I love that. And you're so right. They are kind of losing and battling and fighting for 90%. And then all of a sudden, everything's fine because they fought
That's
their
what
way
I mean.
back. That's so
They're getting
true.
beat up. They're getting beat up. They lose every single fight until the end. There's so many movies that you watch where if you take a step back from an objective point of view and realize they're going through so much bullshit, and then they conquer what they need to conquer. Nobody wants to see a movie that, oh, everything's great, everything's all hunky-dory. Maybe a comedy, sure, that's funny. But even comedy, you have that, they go through some shit, right? I mean, I was watching 22 Jump Street the other day, and they fought.
I love
and
that
then
movie.
I know, right? It's a fucking great movie. They fought, and then they had to get together for spring
Yeah.
break. The other guy gets fucking shot in the arm. Bad shit is going to happen. It is unavoidable unless you're Bubble Boy and you stay inside all day. But even
That's
that,
so bad
right?
shit. You're yeah.
Yeah, but and real quick, I don't want to interrupt how you want to ask the questions, but like in that regard, like it's like you can choose your heart, right? Like think about Bubble Boy. Like as we made that joke, I can choose the heart of staying alone, isolated, upset, depressed, or I can choose the heart of overcoming these things and fighting my demons head on, and then being happy and being an integral part of society. So it's like you could choose your heart, and you have to choose the heart that you want. If you want to sit inside and be alone, but I'm telling you right now, you're going to be in here battling all day. If you go out, enjoy yourself, sure, you might shed a couple tears, but you're going to go ahead and achieve so much more. So why not just get a jump start at that? Go and do it. That's my take on it.
I love it. Yeah, choose your heart. Hopefully we've all heard that.
We've all been there, yeah.
So a question I always ask my guests is, and I'm going to tweak it for you, is if you could go back in time, right, and talk to your younger self. In this case, if you were to go back to your 8 or 9 or 10-year-old self and sit next to him and tell him, I just want you to know what our purpose is, what our mission is in life, and what we're trying to do, and how much we've already done and overcome, like, what would that message sound like?
I think much of what I said, which is bad days will come, so don't make bad days. I'm blessed and thankful that I had good role models that helped encourage me to have this mentality. If I could have gone back in time and realized that everybody goes through bad things and what you're going through will end at some point, I think that's probably the best advice I could give, is that everything is temporary, whether it's pain, happy times. People spend obscene amounts of dollars for a 4-hour wedding. And I'm not saying that that's not a glorious time in your life. I'm not saying it's not going to hold such a good place in your heart and in your mind. And you're going to have a bunch of great photos that you'll be able to show a bunch of friends and family. I'm not saying any of that. But it does end eventually. Again, we talked about relationships, right? The 6 months, that honeymoon phase is going to end. That's why they call it a phase.
Yeah.
It's going to end. Then you're going to go through the part in the relationship where it's like, fuck, he leaves his socks. Oh, man, great. She doesn't put the dishes away, right? Like, so for me, it's like everything is going to end, good and bad. So don't hold so much value on the bad or on the good. See it for what it is. Use it for lifelong memories or lessons. You hear the saying, a lesson or a blessing, right? You hear that. It's either a lesson or a blessing. There's so many things that happened in my life that retrospectively, when I went through, I was like, shit, I wish I wasn't going through this. But then maybe I'm having a conversation with someone in 4 or 5 years and they're going through something similar. And I'm like, that's why I went through what I went through for this moment. It's like when you're on a basketball team, right? You practice your free throws, whatever, whatever. And then, the championship game is here and they need one person to drill the free throw to win the game. And they say, hey, your number's called. You got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't do all that work for nothing.
Yeah.
So I didn't do all this work in my life for nothing. There's going to be people in my life that I'm going to come across and that I'm going to be able to help. And also, another important thing I want to share with people, you can't hold too much weight in other people. And that's probably going back to what I'm saying earlier about how I take control of my life, in meaning everything's my fault. The reason why I say that is because, and I hate just always going back to relationships, but it doesn't have to be male, female, it could be friendships as well. There are times where you're around somebody and you're like, wow, they're going to be my best friend forever, whatever, whatever. And you're with them for 3-4 months and then something happens. A storm hits. And then maybe you find out you guys aren't as close as you thought you were, right? You have to understand that there's seasons in life and there's chapters in your story. And maybe they were an integral part in that chapter, but that doesn't mean they're going to be there for the whole story, right? And so I think when people hold such weight on those relationships, I think it can be more detrimental than helpful, in my opinion. So I think I would tell a younger Nathaniel to remember that bad times are going to come, accept them for what they are, either a lesson or a blessing, but also remember that there's going to be people that come and go in your life, and you have to understand that sometimes they're there again for a lesson or a blessing. And to understand that everything in this life happens for a reason. I don't believe that things happen by accident. That's my personal opinion. And whenever people push back on that, I say, have you ever heard somebody in fantastic shape and you say, hey, what's your workout routine? And they go, oh, it happened by accident. Oops. You hear, I got up at 5, I work out 2 hours, I eat this, and this. On Sunday, that's my cheat meal, whatever, whatever. I share all that because I say that I don't believe anything in life happens just by accident. I don't believe it's this just like, oops moment. I think everything happens for a reason, and you just have to be perspicacious enough to understand what that reason is. You have to understand yourself, why you're in that moment. Again, take yourself out of the picture for a second and say, if I was watching a TV show or skit or a movie and this character was going through that and that person was doing that to him or her, what's the message? What's the angle here? And then you can apply that to your own life. So I think, I use the word perspicacious, and that's something I say. That's who I am, because I'm very well aware of what's going on within myself, but also around me. And I think that that's a useful skill. I think a lot of people should try to acquire that skill, because it is something that you can acquire to take yourself out of whatever situation you're in and see it for what it is. Again, if you were watching a TV show of that same scenario, what advice would you give to the main character, which is you? We all watch TV shows and we're all like, don't go in the closet. Don't do that. Don't do that. We all do it. Why not do that for your own life? I don't know. I try not to be harsh, but my dad would say things to me like, Nathaniel, if you had half of the energy that some people have for, I'm not anti-music or anti-festivals or anything like that, but you go see a concert. We've all been to one. And, you see somebody, the singer comes out. I'm a big Ed Sheeran fan. Again, I've done this too. Ed Sheeran comes out on stage. I'm screaming my head off for Ed Sheeran, a guy who I've heard 1,000,000 times in my life. And I'm still screaming my head off. My dad says to me one time, he goes, Nathaniel, if people had half of that energy that they have for a concert or a sports game or whatever in their own life, think about where they could be.
Mm.
And, I don't want to say this again. I'm not anti-music, anti-entertainment, but I say that so that way people could take a step back and be like, you are really the pilot to your own life. And if you had half of that energy that you have when you hear an Ed Sheeran song from some shitty radio speaker that we've all heard on our phones 1,000 times, clearly, I think it would be a more productive world. And, again, maybe I'm just trying to change the world one soul at a time, but as that educator in me. But I really do believe that we dictate our lives more than what we think we do.
Mm.
And that doesn't mean we dictate the surroundings, not at all. But again, if you had half that energy into maybe a business, maybe your solo career, I don't know. Maybe you're a singer, maybe you're a songwriter, maybe you're a podcaster, maybe you want to write a book. If you had half of that energy and excitement and passion into yourself, think about how further along you would be.
Mm.
So I really think that it's something that I hope people who listen to this take and understand that I'm not coming from a place of malice or spite or, hey, you're an idiot if you're dancing to a Taylor Swift song that you've heard. It's more so of like, hey, you know what? Like, enjoy it for what it is, but also have that same passion that you have for your own vocation.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Okay, so then is that your mission? You're at your service, like you're in the service world, you're helping people. I know you do it, physically in your training, as a personal trainer, but also, here in this space and influencing in really good ways. And obviously it comes from experience. It comes from gained knowledge, and the way you speak is beyond experience. You're actually making use of the things and sharing it. So is that the mission? It's, I'm at your service. Like, that's kind of how I look at what I'm here for. I'm here for impact, and helping others move forward in life. And like, that is what is just oozing out of you right now. So is that your mission?
Ashley, my friend, I want to say yes, but in some ways, perhaps not. And I don't mean to be cynical. I don't. Why I say that is because I think sometimes I don't want to be harsh.
Honesty is so good. Come on now.
Honesty is good. All right. You're encouraging me, my friend. But I want you to push back if you feel like I'm saying something that's out of bounds. I want
to hear this.
That's our job as friends.
Right? It's your perspective, though.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Sometimes I feel like there's lost causes. There's some people that don't want to change and don't want to put in the work. As I've said countless times in this episode, and I'll say countless times in my life, you really have more control than what you think. Mm-hmm. And I share that because I encourage people to be the best versions of themselves. But I think sometimes you'll hear people go, yeah, but, if I had a mom who had, $500K in the bank, if I had a dad who had this, and if I had this and this and this, maybe it would be better. Well, yeah, I mean, everybody would do better if they had a head start in a race. But, you can only... You said this in our podcast episode. You said you only know what you know when you know it. Mm-hmm. And you can only do what you can do when you can do it. Mm-hmm. And so, I think a lot of times people will have the want, but not really the drive to want to self-improve. Because self-improving is hard. I'm not going to pretend that it's not hard. You have to look at yourself in the mirror. You have to say, wow, I really fucked up. I did this. I did that. A lot of times when people are going through something, they want an out. They want an excuse. And I think that that's so harmful. And so, I mean, in theory, yeah, I would love that to be a mission statement. But at the same time, sometimes maybe I'm cynical, maybe I'm pessimistic, maybe I don't believe in it because sometimes I see some of the stuff that people will, or I'll listen to some of the stuff people say, and it's polar opposite and counterintuitive for what they are saying they want to achieve, and then they don't act on it. And I
Mm.
can only speak for myself, right? Like, part of my job is in that service industry as a personal trainer, right? I will share this. I've had way more people, boats load of people, who have said, I'm trying to get in the gym. I'm trying to get right. I want you to get me 100%. I want beach body ready. The amount of people that actually are in it is a small percentage. And so, I really think that sometimes comfortability gets in the way. And what I mean by that is it serves as a barrier to like want to go ahead and push further. Nothing in life is worth doing if it's not hard.
Mm.
If you have a goal and it's not hard, you don't have a good goal. You don't. Every time you go to the gym, that's hard. Every time you read a book and you don't like reading, that's hard.
Hmm.
Anytime you put yourself out there, you're opening yourself up for criticism and for heinous comments. That's hard. Pretty much for, like you said earlier, choose your hard.
Hmm.
And I think more people would rather choose the hard of the easier route of I can't do anything, woe is me, I'm just going to stay in bed all day, instead of life can suck, but it can also be the greatest fucking party. The world is your oyster. I think a lot of times people, they say go back to that childlike mindset,
Mm.
and it's so useful for life. When you and I were kids, what were we told? We could be anything. We could
Mm.
do anything. We're in control of our emotions, right? We're told these things. You say that to your son when your son fucking wants to throw an Xbox controller at the TV. You tell him you're in control of your emotion.
Hmm.
And then for some reason, we get to like 15, 16, 17, and we lose that. We lose
Mm.
that fervor. And I never lost that. I never wanted to lose that. I wanted to be in control of my emotion. I wanted to have this world be my oyster and my playground and do whatever I want. If people live that mentality, I'm telling you, a lot of people would live happy, healthy lives.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times what hurts us is negative influences,
Hmm.
bad friends, whatever programming you're watching. I don't know. Um, I would love to be a beacon of success and light and motivation for people, but sometimes I just feel like some people, they talk it, but they don't want to walk it.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with you on that. In fact, not that I hadn't really considered this concept, but recently, I don't know where I heard it, but it was like there's some people put on this planet to make impact and to grow and to, possess some kind of purpose that is greater good, whatever. And really just to grow and change and become like better humans. And then there's people who are not meant to grow.
Mm-hmm.
They're not on this planet to further develop and create impact and be much more.
Right.
There, and it was a really like kind of bizarre thought to be like, wait, so some people are just here and then other people are meant to make a difference. And then I really thought about it, and the further to think about the concept is the people who aren't meant to grow per se are here to teach those who are growing, who
Mm-hmm.
like we can learn from their mistakes and their mess ups, so then in the end they're not purposeless, they're not without purpose, so maybe they're not meant to grow and change and become the best versions of themselves because maybe they don't have a better version of themselves. But for the people who are going to keep going and do the hard things and find their positive and overcome and achieve and do all those things, right? Maybe they're meant to bump into these people who aren't growing
Yeah.
because then, they serve their purpose. I don't know. It's a kind of an out there concept, but if you think about the people who choose, and it is a choice to do the work versus not, if they're consecutively, like consistently not committing to anything to further themselves, then
Yeah.
maybe, their purpose is just different. I don't know.
It's not that crazy of a concept if you think about it, because you're right. Like there are, and I don't mean to discredit individuals, because I want to, before I share this, I want to say I do believe everybody could be the best version of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to do the work, and it will be hard. It
Yep.
will not be easy. But if you choose not to put in that work, in a sense, you kind of become a lemming, and maybe that's an out of date reference for some people, because maybe they haven't come up with a video game in a while. But for the people who don't know, it used to be a video game in which you would place one little figure and he would walk and march in place and just follow the rest. And sometimes you would walk him off a cliff on purpose just because it was silly. And it wasn't until you put one in a different direction that then all the other ones started going in a different direction. That's more where I come from, in the sense of like, do I want to help everyone? Yes, but I think some people just don't want to be helped, right? Like, I have come across individuals in my life who are in their mid to late 40s, and they're like, yeah, but I still live at home with my mom and I still do this, and I don't really take anything seriously. And the reason why is because my dad was a piece of shit when I was 11.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And
Excuses.
right. And that's easy.
Yep.
That's easy to say, oh,
Yep.
well, my dad was a piece of shit. And rather than using that as an excuse, overcome that, right? Like, how much more powerful, let's just use that scenario as to paint a picture here. How much more powerful would it be if we heard that individual say, you know what? My dad wasn't the best father as a child, but I'm successful. And now we have our own personal relationship because I decided to put in the work, you know? And now we can see it for what it is. And now I've realized that my dad also had a lot of growing up to do. Like, how much more inspirational would that be to people? I would look at the person A who's like, I don't really work a real job. I hate my dad. He was mean to me, whatever, whatever. I wouldn't want anything to do with that person.
Yeah.
But now if I heard person B who said, you know what? My dad and I had a very tumultuous relationship, whatever, whatever. He wasn't the best person. But now we've grown and he's learned who I am and I've learned who he is. And I learned he had some bullshit he was going through. We want to sit here and act like our parents are this perfect embodiment, and we wish for that, but that's not always the case. Our parents are going through their bullshit too, and we can only do what we can do. And so I really think that it's super important to look beyond what you've gone through. Put yourself in the other person's shoe. Despite the fact that I say I'm not an incredibly emotional person, I like to think I'm a very empathetic person. And a lot of times that person might not have all the answers, right? Like, look at me. I'll use me for an example. When I'm 18, 19, I was a fucking idiot. I was a screw up. I'm lucky I'm not dead right now. I've had situations where fireworks almost blew my face off because I was an idiot. And so it's like, you got to give the person room to grow and allow that to happen. But if they choose not to, then there's only so much you can do, right? And so I want to try to simplify it. I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying that there's so much work that needs to be put in. And I think once you see the people actually try to put in the work, they realize how hard it is, and then they don't want to do it. It can be done, but it's going to be that small percentage of, like I said, those people that are like, hey, I want to get right into the gym. It's always going to be maybe 2 out of 100. You wish it was the 98 over 2, but that's not always the case.
Yeah. Fair point. Yeah, I like what you say about it's basically choose your heart and making choices, and I agree. Like, not everybody's up for it to put in the work and make the changes. And I'll be honest, I had a situation where I was at a wellness fair, and people were there for crystals and quick answers and tell me my futures and I mean, I hate to use the word lazy, but it was like a quick fix. They were all there for quick fixes, so people kept avoiding the life coach because I make you work. And I don't really accept clients who aren't willing to do that. I mean, it's like one of my first questions is, hey, like, are you willing to put in the effort? Because that's the way this is going to work. I will support you. I will hold you accountable, but I will hold you accountable. Like, so you're going to have to step up and go for it. So I work best with people who are coachable. And if you're not willing, it's not just coachable. It's like you really do have to be willing. And if you're not, you're going to be following the crowd and avoiding. So I love that you've faced things head on. I love that you're emotional and logical. And if you can't, what I'm taking away is like, if you can influence and impact people who are willing to take the bait and run with it and make something of it and find their potential and rise, then great. If not, like, I can't make those choices for you. You're in control of yourself. And, I don't think that's wrong. I think that's real.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I appreciate that because I
yeah.
think if you say that it's not soft, that's definitely not softballed, right? And there's no soft gloves in that. But I think, like you said, for your own experience, when you work with individuals who actually want to change, you can almost feel it. You know it. You can see it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at a point in life that I can look at you for 5 minutes and I can tell if you're full of shit or if you're serious about it. And I want you to be serious about it. I do.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to be when rubber meets the road, right? Like when shit gets hard, how are you going to be? And you have to be willing to understand that bullshit is going to happen. You're going to have to get some mental resilience and some toughness. I really wish that everybody could have that mentality.
Mm-hmm.
But some people are born with it, and some people have experiences that help them, and some people who don't live a life that is challenging ever really truly experiencing that. So when they have something like that later on in life, it's the worst thing in the world.
Ooh, so many good themes. It's like the story of you, but the lessons, they're so good for anyone to hear. But especially if this jives, if you're really connecting to these messages, like this is your episode, because not only are you being vulnerable and sharing, but the pieces that have built you into who you are to be able to share with whoever will listen. If anyone's going to take this good advice, it's because it comes from experience and it comes from the work. And so, if we had to put a bow on it, it's, you can make all kinds of choices, but you're in charge of you. You're in control of yourself. And if you're willing to put in the work, then you're going to grow and you're going to be better. And you don't have to stop. You can keep getting better and you can keep be yourself and, do what you are drawn to. But you got to put in the work if you want to get somewhere. I love it.
Absolutely. Experience is the greatest teacher.
Yeah.
I think you have to take the experience and let it teach you. You can't be like, "Oh, I went through that for nothing." Oops.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mentioned earlier. We all go through something so that way later on in life we're able to use it. So have those experiences and really be able to use it is one of the best things that I think any person can go through personally, because then you have this self-reflective moment within your own mind of like, holy shit, I remember when I went through this and now look at me. I'm able to do it this way, blah, 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 whatever. That's what we want. That's what we want.
Mm-hmm. Nuggets. So many nuggets. I love it. Thank you for being open. Is this really the most open that you've been with your own audience?
Most open I've been. And you're probably the only one that could bring it out of me because, one, you challenge me in a very positive way, in a way that you can see, you can understand what I'm trying to get at, but you also want to understand why I got there. And I think that that's a skill of yours. I will say that. I think a skill of yours is that you are very, very good at listening to a person, but then also trying to push back in a way that like is like, well, I want to understand why. I think that's a skill of yours. So you're very good at your job, and it is quite noticeable, my friend, quite noticeable. And the truth is like, when as we're wrapping up, it seems. You give me half a subject and I'll just start running my mouth about it. And if people want to listen to it, they want to listen to it. But you are the one person who I have felt the most comfortable with in terms of like sharing these type of things, but also the one that was the most interested of like, I know that Nathaniel has a story that he has just not quite shared. And I still didn't finish, right? Like, and I think that that's the beauty of it. Like, right? Like, that's the beauty of our lives. The beauty of our lives is that we have a bunch of stories and choose your heart. I'd rather choose the heart so I can have all these stories than choose the heart and have nothing and provide no substance and talk about Love Island. These type of enriching conversations are what helps people grow, what helps people learn, what helps people understand empathy, and also helps people understand why that clock may tick the way that it does. And so I appreciate that you even cared enough to say, hey, Nathaniel, I want to talk to you because I know that you have more to share and your insights are impactful. And, this isn't I don't think that this is oh, we're all done here. I think this is just all right, we're going to put a pin in it for now and we'll reset and we'll probably come up with more topics because I think we both have a lot of insight with our lives. I think your coaching, my experiences, your experiences, and I guess you could say my coaching for what that is. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
I don't
for
think it
sure.
is much of it, but I'm glad that we have connected in a way that we can share and use this platform to help individuals to be the best version of themselves. I do want to say this. I don't think that what we said or shared was to discredit or disrespect anybody. If anything, we want to extract the best versions of people. So if anybody is slighted by what we said, I don't think you're listening to the true message. I think it comes across as maybe insecurity within yourself of understanding that, maybe we struck a nerve because that there might be something that you're holding on to and you just got to let it go and focus on you and work on yourself.
Yeah, I agree there. And you know what? Feel your feels. Whatever comes out from hearing what we have to say, everyone has their own story. And I think you kind of explained, you can kind of kind of figure somebody out when you first meet them. And I knew when we first talked, go listen to that episode if you haven't yet. But when we first talked, I just knew there were layers. And I think that's kind of my, like that's my not so hidden talent is like I can read
Yeah.
between the words,
Yeah.
and I can always kind of tell that there's more to the story. And you gave me some little I don't know how to explain it, but there was some pieces that I picked up on in our episode together. I was like, oh, there is more to that. So I agree that we're not done here. I like podcasting with you, my friend. I think we come from like-minded places. And I agree with things we've experienced and lessons we've learned. And I mean, there's more to everybody, right? There's more shells to crack open, I'm sure. Even with me. I mean, I think I'm vulnerable, but sometimes, I keep it kind of tucked away because I'm supposed to be, the helper. So, but it's good to be vulnerable. It is. And even, the stuff that we are scared of of our own selves can be impactful and helpful to somebody else. So, yeah, I'm gonna end there.
That sounds great. Well,
Yeah.
Ashley, thank you for taking the time and sitting and chopping it up with me. I want people to still connect with you and follow you and all that jazz. So why don't you plug yourself in per usual, and then I'll end with our sponsors.
I love it. Well, and thank you for being okay with this and letting me kind of be the one on the other side and having me on again. I really appreciate it. It's super fun. And I love now knowing the party animal side because you're just a lover of life and oh, we need more of that. We need more of you, my friend. If you want to find me, ablifecoaching.com is my website. I'm on Instagram at ABL Life Coaching. And now I have a new podcast account on Instagram. It's Needy and Normal Pod. So that's my podcast, is Needy and Normal. So we're going to be on both. This episode is so special. It's going to be on both our shows. So how about you do your own plug too? I mean, I know you got sponsors. Let's put them out there. And then where can everyone find you and keep being inspired?
Oh, all right. If you heard what I said and you were inspired, then you can follow me at I'm Nathanael Reyes. You can DM me, you can challenge me, you can talk to me, you can do all that fun stuff. If you were not inspired, you can follow ABL Life Coaching and go ahead and run your mouth there. No, just kidding. Oh, man. Yeah, I'm Nathanael Reyes on everything, and it's AEL at the end of Nathaniel because my mom wanted to be unique and not have IEL. I don't know why. She thought that it was going to make me cool. It just made it more confusing for a lot of people. And, I got Nathaniel and was called a Neanderthal by a 7th grade crush that I had.
Shit.
But yeah, it happens. Right? We all go through our awkward phase, but
we do.
Yeah.
And it's not Daniel, like the order.
No, it's not Daniel. Nathaniel.
No.
One of my first few jobs of working with kids, one of the kids did not know how to say my name, and they did say not Daniel. So
not Daniel. That was your name.
That's yep. That was so long ago though. That kid is probably like 16 at this point. But
that's so wild.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again, Ashley, for taking the time, sitting and chopping it up with me. That is going to do it for this wonderful episode of the Reyes Reflection podcast, but also a wonderful episode of the Needy and Normal podcast, which I should have said at the beginning. So I didn't do my due diligence by saying that this is an episode of Needy and Normal podcast as well. Don't forget to follow the sponsors of the Reyes Reflection podcast: A-Rave Cards, Jocko Fuel, Mad Rabbit, Tattoo Afghan, Smackin' Sunflower Seeds. And you have sponsor as well, right? ABL Life Coaching, that's the sponsor?
ABL Life Coaching is the sponsor of the Needy Normal podcast. Definitely follow there.
All right. Well, my friend, you are delightful. I appreciate you. That is going to do it. We are all wrapped. And as always, may you live, may you love, and may you thrive. I'm Oprah as a dude, and I love you all. How do you normally rap?
I say your needs matter because you matter.
All right.
And that's
we'll end
true.
it there.
Thank you for listening to the Needy and Normal podcast. The show is brought to you by ABL Life Coaching. Go check it out at ablifecoaching.com. And also find us on Instagram, Needy and Normal Pod, and ABL Life Coaching. Accepting new clients come fall 2025.